Paul McCrory is our next speaker, and he's currently the acting managing director of Facebook Australia, New Zealand. He's worked at Facebook for almost 4 years, most recently as the company's group industry director for Australia. Sorry, I've just got to put these on so I can actually read this. He also works in New Zealand across a range of industries, including banking, financial services, insurance and travel. And just seeing, I was talking about Twitter in the interest of balance, because I'm working at the ABC at the moment, and balance is very important. I've been talking about Twitter, but Facebook is the world's largest social media network and currently has approximately 1.9 billion monthly active users globally. So there you go, there's a plug for each of those social media platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul McCrory.
Hey guys, thank you very much. So firstly, to Tourism Australia, thank you for giving us the opportunity today to come along. And you know, when we think about what we were going to talk about today, it became very, very quick about what subject we wanted to ladder on. So we've got a lot of big, wonderful things that we can talk about. We've also got some very, very applicable things we can talk about that are pertinent to the industry that we're working in right now. So there's 3 reasons why, you know, I've been really looking forward to today, and 3 reasons. Firstly, I mean, when you think about the industry we work in, it's killing it at the minute, right? So Australia has done some incredible numbers in the last year. Secondly, in terms of a product to sell, and as the RMC just mentioned earlier on, not about Twitter, she mentioned I worked in financial services as well. It's a hell of a lot more boring selling credit cards than it is selling Australia, right? Maybe not today, but what a thing to sell. Priceless, eh? And thirdly, I'm sure you'll get me back later on. And thirdly, when you think about, you know, it's always a brilliant time to work in something when it's on a really upward trajectory. And so at the moment in Australia, tourism is critical to not just, you know, a small part of the economy, but an increasingly bigger part. So those 3 things make it a really super interesting place to work. Now, I'm just trying to flick through. Yeah, here we go. So I always start with a little slide, phone, an image about, you know, a person, right? And so when we talk about anything on behalf of the company, we always ladder back to the role of a phone and the smartphone and what it's actually causing and the implications it's got for our industry and the fact that it's about people. So you'll see here there's a picture of me, there's a picture of Jimmy the sausage dog, who's a cute little bugger. I think we can all say that. Maybe not just in the same part as the kangaroos we've seen earlier, but he's doing all right. But the whole thing that we want to talk about is what is the actual global opportunity for platforms like Facebook to drive the local economy. And so about 2 years ago, we pioneered an approach directly out of the Sydney office. It started with Tourism New Zealand and the New Zealand government, and we're now working on that directly here with Tourism Australia and the Australian government, which was to stop to think about, like, I mean, everybody in the room, in fact, hands up, who uses Facebook or Instagram to drive some sort of tourism campaign? Yeah? So happy days, good crowd. But the reality of it is that we all use these things for different things, right? What we were thrown the challenge 2 years ago was to say, so on a global scale, considering the fact that in Australia, we've got, you know, tourism is the #1 export. Also over in New Zealand, tourism is now the #1 export. Was that what could a global platform like Facebook do to truly drive the economy? So not about, you know, doing nice content and nice videos, but what could we truly do at scale that would have a material impact on 2 things? The number of people who actually arrive in Australia who've received advertising globally, and number 2, when people get here, how can we disperse them through the country and how can we actually help them, or help, like Tourism Australia, for example, to make more money for each person who arrives. And I'm going to start off quickly and show you an example. Because we pioneered this in New Zealand and we're now into Australia, we finished off a big piece of work with the guys over in NZ recently, which I'm going to show you, and then we're going to get into some of the great work that we're currently working on with the guys here in Australia. But the challenge we had was that in New Zealand, essentially in summertime and wintertime, the country was kind of sold out, right? There was a capacity issue, so there wasn't enough rooms, etc., for people to actually stay in. So the challenge was, how could we do something globally that would have a material impact on the number of people who arrive off-peak or for shoulder season? And the output of this was, the overall impact was a 26% increase in year-over-year visitors, which a big part was accredited to ourselves. So I just want to show you a little example of what this looks like and some of the work that we're going to be seeing coming from Australia as well.
New Zealand, where Kiwis live. a little piece of paradise in the Pacific, and we wanted the world to come visit. Lord of the Rings attracted lots of this mob, but Tourism New Zealand wanted more of this lot. So we thought we'd try something new and digital, built for mobile. We looked at some numbers and graphs, and even brought a good bit of technology into it. The data gave us an insight. People wanted to see what it felt like to go on holiday in New Zealand. So we wrote a story about a couple who go on an epic, unplanned adventure and invited the world to come along.
I'm sorry, did you say bait?
Yeah, look, they look good.
Bait is something that you get to catch the food. It's not the food.
We made 5 films and sent them to people who were most likely to visit. They're called a lookalike audience because, well, they look like people who had been to New Zealand. There were over 30 million of them, 7 times more than the whole of New Zealand. We used what they call sequencing in the biz, so people saw the stories in order. Each film focused on a new reason to visit. Food and plonk, cities and trendy people, shops to buy nice things, cute wildlife, and we couldn't leave this out. Want to know the best thing? People seemed to like them. They watched them a lot and remembered them. The stories showed people where they could go and made them find out how to come visit. It was better than TV by miles. First, we make people dream. Then we showed them all the things they can do here. And finally, we invited them to swing by. It proved all the computers, VDubs, insights, targeting, and scenery not only gets attention, it gets results. Pretty good results. When you put stories about a country of 4 million people in the hands of people everywhere on Earth, we make a heck of a lot more Kiwis out of the rest of the world. Sweet as.
Okay, so flicking through that, and you probably think today you'll see some video stuff and all the rest of it. The reality is what's coming out now is that for every single dollar spent on the global work that we do, it's now generating $22 for that local economy. And so that's the sort of stuff that we're really highly engaged on now. And you're seeing with the partnership with Tourism Australia, that's what our focus is. But the bigger part as well is that it's not just what we do with the airlines or Tourism Australia, it's what we do as a collective to try and have a true impact here on the economy. So here you've got Time Magazine back 2006. They kind of got it right, which was talking about, the person of the year was going to be the information age and how that was dispersed. What they got wrong was that it wasn't going to be through laptops and PCs anymore. It's on the mobile phone. And so when we think about that, there was 1.5 billion people connected in 2006. There's now 3. There was 3 hours spent online back then. There's now 6. But the big thing was that 50% of the entire internet is now used on a mobile phone. So whilst that concept was right about the information agent being the person of the year, it's actually the phone that's driving all of this, which is the big opportunity for all of us. So when people are on phones very quickly, 80% of time is actually spent in an app. But if I would say we're all the same here. We've got probably about 80 apps on our phone. Most of them are useless. We don't use them, right? Whenever we think about this, 80% of the time that you're spent on your phone is spent within 5 apps. So here, we've got a selection up there. We've got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Messenger, et cetera, But actually, your banking app, maybe your frequent flyer app, et cetera, are the ones that you use all the time. And so when we think about how we take mobile platforms like Facebook to go and get people to come here, you have to think about the scale. And so about 1/3 of all time spent in apps is spent on Facebook properties, which is why for tourism, it's such a big opportunity. And then we think about how do we tell these stories, and we're starting to see more and more of this coming out. We see some of the best work globally coming out of Australia, both from small to medium operators all the way through to the big campaigns that the guys in Tourism Australia are doing. And here you've got messaging, which is expressive. You've got stuff like Facebook, which becomes deeply immersive, and you've got that nice video content all the way through over to Instagram, which is, a huge piece of inspiration globally when people are thinking about where they can travel to. So what does that mean for travel? And again, we want to try and ladder this back. So we've seen earlier on with Jason's presentation from Google, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about can be very, very similar. It's about, everybody knows people are on phones, everybody knows there's all this scale, but what does it mean for the people in the room, right? And so 85% of travel decisions are being made on a phone. That's more than on a laptop. it's more than on a tablet. So when people are thinking about what they want to do, when people are trying to discover what matters to most of them, when you're trying to win that discovery, what is it that you can, where should you be spending your time? How should you be building? How should you be creating? You should be creating in a mobile-first world. And here's a little video to show you what the travel journey looks like on a mobile. Okay, cool. So an interesting point we had earlier on around the MasterCard data, which was saying that Americans are actually traveling a lot. They're traveling over to Asia, but yet some of the stats that we had locally were that we weren't experiencing that same influx here. However, the great news is that the work that Lisa, Jeff, and the team have been doing with us certainly has showed a dramatic impact in terms of being able to get into the psyche of the US traveler and make them consider this country for a variety of reasons over other places like Hawaii, etc. And we're going to touch on some of that. But when we think about how do you connect with high-yield travelers, right, I wanted to touch on a little bit of the scale and then the challenge that it has, right? Because the reality of it is that on our platforms now globally, there is an immense amount of people. And then we drill into it, and there's a lot of the people that you really want, who've got money, who've got intent, who look like people who've been here before. But every single country wants them, right? Everybody wants them, and they've got a certain amount of time to spend. And so our job as advertisers and marketers is to make sure that we tell the best story about our country so they choose here. But a bit about this scale, right? So almost 1.9 billion people on Facebook, 1 billion on WhatsApp, 1 billion on Messenger, 600 million on Instagram. So we've all known it, lots and lots of people. Let's look at the US, 325 million people as a population, 209 million on Facebook, which is 78% of the internet users. However, that's not really what we want. It's a lot of people, right? We don't want to speak to all these people. None of us have enough money to do it. It's like putting a TV ad out in the US and hoping it works and gets your exact audience to come here. It's just, it's pretty much a road to nowhere like that. So sometimes it looks a bit like this. And our job is to try and get into the data and try to work out, hey, you know what can we do? So working with the guys at TA, we've done a great job on doing this stuff already. And if you look here then, you can refine this audience. So you think about data you've got, you think about income data, you think about their travel data, et cetera, that's all built in. And all of a sudden, you get a really nice scaled out audience in every country that we operate in, outside of China, unfortunately, but in every country that we operate in, that then you can start to go and tell the story of this country and try to bring people here. But how do we tell that story? As I said before, every single country has now got this requirement. Anybody where tourism is a big part of the economy, they want this audience and they want them on mobile, they want to get them to come here. So this is the way we've seen the ability to storytell change over time. So it started off by, hey, isn't Italy beautiful or isn't Australia beautiful? And then it moved into photos. Then we moved into video, and then up in the top right, we moved into virtual reality and augmented reality. Now, in our mind, video is really where it's at, But that's right now, but it's moving very quickly. So we've got examples in the UK of people like Thomas Cook, for example, whereby they do try before you buy holidays. So you go in, it looks a bit like that. It's a bit of a sort of shitty wet English day outside, and you want to go to the Maldives, you want to go somewhere nice and warm, and rather than just having the brochure, you'll stick on the Oculus Rift headset, and all of a sudden you're in the Maldives. Now, the conversion rate for getting people to do that sort of stuff versus just showing them the glossy brochure is much higher. So this has got a really big impact, and our job now is about how we sequence that into the wider opportunities for overall marketing. And here, we see that the reason video now is incredibly important is because 40% of people say that they're inspired by travel stories they hear from other people, but almost 60% of them have been inspired by video content that really gives them that understanding of what the place is going to be like and gives them that urge to see more. And we see here live video, live on Facebook, around the Sydney fireworks on New Year's Eve, bringing one of the most spectacular fireworks events in the world to the world, okay? So a beautiful example of how this can work. And then here, so we start to see some of the stuff that we've been running locally in Australia, like amazing work. You've got like taking advantage of the latest and greatest in technology with 360-degree video, all the way through to demonstrating the beauty of the country through other video content, and then all the way through to Instagram, sequencing all of this through. So already we're starting to demonstrate best in practice. Now, when I referenced the work that was done, the Coastal and Aquatic campaign, which has been referenced a few times, John referenced it in his piece earlier on. Lisa and the team were really brave and took a big jump into this. It was the first big sort of Facebook activity that we did. And this was a US-based campaign. The intention of this was to try and persuade people in America that if they wanted a coastal and aquatic holiday, that they should come to Australia and not go to Hawaii. And the great news is that one of the harder things to move, so getting people to see ads and be aware of them is pretty easy, right? But getting people to really change their intent to go somewhere is much more difficult. And the campaign, beautifully shot, I mean, it was gorgeous, right? And executed amazingly. But it had a 3 times increase on the average travel norm for intent to come to Australia. But the beauty about it was that the intent they took away from Hawaii. So those people that we increased the intent to come here, they decreased their intent to go to Hawaii. So a campaign, beautifully shot, delivered really well to an audience who have got the money and the intent to travel, and it worked really well. And in fact, the holiday campaign as well that we've seen that was delivered in the UK, again, when done right and shot right, as these guys have got such an amazing capability to do, the same sort of intent. I think there was about a 12-point lift in men between the ages of 18 and 24, which is a real strong hitting zone. So some brilliant work coming out of the guys here. So I've got 2 slides to finish off, and for once I seem to be running under time, which is remarkable actually. But the 2 things that I wanted to sort of close off on, first thing is like what's next, right? So it's totally possible for everybody here to continue doing what we're doing right now. There's John showed that piece earlier on about the Good Day USA and the local tour operators who have submitted some beautiful, amazing work. We see the big campaigns that are coming out of Tourism Australia, convincing the US markets and global markets that Australia is the destination of choice for everything from wine and food, culture, coastal and aquatic, etc. That's great. We've got Qantas, we've got the airlines here who are doing great work as well and selling this as a destination and getting people to come. The way to really supercharge all of this is to get the information that we all hold and get that connected together to show the real impact that when we combine our forces, so you've got the huge, beautiful campaign work that can come out of Tourism Australia, you've got people like the airlines who can convert or the OTAs. When we get that information combined and we use it together, we will have a much greater impact on the actual amount of people who come here. And then when they get here, we can use a lot of stuff to try and get them dispersed throughout the country. The last piece to look at is what's next with us. And there's sort of 2 main platforms that you will be familiar with that you use will be Facebook and Instagram. But messaging is a huge thing. So when you think about it, right, there's only a certain amount of stories somebody can tell in a day. There's only a certain amount of photos you'll upload in a day. There's almost an infinite amount of one-to-one messaging that we want to do. Hey, where do you want to go for dinner? What time's your flight? Blah, 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 right? Why am I wearing green socks? Because it's St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. Pretty quick question. But the reality is that we want to share information quickly, very instantaneous, right? And so when we think about Facebook Messenger, it has literally taken off, right? It's crazy how quickly this thing has grown. So over 1 billion users. Australia is one of the most developed markets for us globally. Now, we can't disclose the exact information just yet, but it's crazy the amount of our population that uses Messenger and the volume of messages we send. So what does that mean? What it means is that, and I'll touch on what Jason from Google said earlier on, which was about the whole experiences thing. I agree. And Messenger now is a really unique way for us to try and insert ourselves in people's lives to give them utility and experiences that are really important to them. So for example, a really interesting way that this could be used within tourism is that I believe that in Australia and New Zealand, for both TNZ and TA, one of the most popular inquiries that hits is if you've already decided you're coming to Sydney or Melbourne or you're going up to the NT, is that what should I do when I'm there, right? And so there's a really unique opportunity to use Messenger to connect these people to all of the best ideas, stories, experiences, which will then help you to disperse them across the country and not just make money for the city that they're arriving into. We see it within banking, whereby the service revolution is kicking in and people are spending all this time in these apps. I mean, who likes to go to a branch to get service? Nobody likes it. People don't like being on the phone to a call center. It's cumbersome, it's old, it's clunky, it's annoying. But people like being in apps that they use all the time, and Messenger's that thing, okay? So to finish off, I just wanted to show you a really nice example from another one of our local partners in Qantas, who have launched a really nice experience within Facebook Messenger.
Every day, thousands of people use Facebook Messenger to connect with Qantas for everything from booking changes to baggage information. But now, through Facebook Messenger, you can get travel inspiration too. Say hello to the Qantas Concierge Bot, your personal messenger bot, bringing the world to your fingertips. Ready to choose your next adventure? From bustling city streets to culinary hotspots, secluded beaches to calming resorts, you can explore heaps of destinations. And when you're ready, you can see the flight deals to get you there. Need some support from our customer care team? The Qantas Concierge Bot can help with that too. Search Qantas in the Messenger app to get inspired for your next amazing holiday.
So great example, of one of the world's most successful airlines using the latest and greatest in technology to bring these experiences, and I know there's a lot more to come. This is relevant for small to medium businesses, large tour operators. It's relevant for everybody, and I think the big opportunity for this is making sure that we actually increase the amount of money that people are spending when they're here by getting them the right information, itineraries, making them equipped to understand where to go and what to do, and try to get them throughout the country. So just in closing out, as I said at the start, the thing that I'm excited about is that this industry is really important to Australia now. Some of the best work we're seeing globally is from right here in this room. And finally, if I could just leave everybody with one point, is that we're here to connect with everybody in the room to not just do nice marketing and do good campaigns, but to have a truly material impact on what we can have on the economy. And so thank you very, very much.
Any questions for Paul?
So the question is, when you're sitting here and aggregating, how do you help people prioritize what they should be reaching out to first, right? And how are you using your data to actually connect that?
Yeah, great question. Look, so it all comes back to the outcome that somebody is trying to do, right? So we've seen examples this morning whereby some of these. I know there was about 50, I think, of people who inserted or applied for the competition that John was talking about. And You know, if it's about trying to get people to your website, if it's about trying to get people to actually come and book stuff, or if it's, in the case of Tourism Australia, if it's really fundamentally trying to find those people who have got money to travel and win their hearts and minds, what is that outcome? And then hold companies like Facebook accountable to helping you drive that outcome. You know, when you think about the information that we've got, I mean, we've got this huge, huge audience. Our job as partners to the industry is to try and take that scale and make it pertinent to drive the outcome you want. And that outcome's different for everybody. But it's pretty clear now for us, the job here in the room is to try and get, as to find those people globally who are in that sweet spot, and then win their hearts and minds by telling them the best possible stories about our country, and then measure the amount of those people who've arrived in the country and how much more money we can get them to spend, which then truly proves the impact of marketing on tourism.
Any other questions for Paul? No? Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Paul McCrory. Thank you.